Yo, did the UAE's secret closed-door meeting with President Trump and crypto czar David Sachs save the Bitcoin bull run? Well, the internet broke when the UAE sheik and brother of the president publicly tweeted that he was in the US to discuss AI and digital currencies. Following this meeting, the White House confirmed that the UAE is going to invest $1.4 trillion into America. But the real question is Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining going to be part of this $1.4 trillion investment? Since this is a closed door meeting, since this meeting took place, the price of Bitcoin has rallied aggressively to 90K, which makes us wonder, is the Middle East saving the Bitcoin bull run? Before we jump into it, I do want to bring up my legendary co-host, always optimistic, Optimus Fields in the co-host chair, and of course, our special guest today, Mauricio, CIO of Legend in the house and good friend as well. All right, gentlemen, let's jump straight into today's show. I mean, this is pretty crazy. We're not clickbaiting you guys. This actually happened. Let me show you guys receipts. So what am I talking about? What was I talking about in the beginning? So check this out. I'm sorry, guys. I can't pronounce this. Opti, do you want to give it a shot? Tahoon bin Zayed.
Tahoon bin Zayed
Nayad. So he is the Highness Sheikh Tahouni deputy ruler of Abu Dhabi. And he met with crypto czar and AI czar of the White House, David Sachs. And check out this post. I explored with David Sachs, the special advisor on AI and crypto, the transformative effects of artificial intelligence across various sectors, the expanding role of digital currencies in reshaping financial systems, and the investment opportunities emerging at their convergence. As technological advancements accelerate, fostering collaboration and adoption, forward-looking strategies remain essential pillars for driving sustainable growth and achieving long-term impact. Now, what's really interesting as well is you guys have to remember to zoom in, zoom out when in doubt. The Bitcoin conference, our friends over at the Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin Magazine, threw an amazing conference over at Abu Dhabi. And here's David Bailey with, I believe, the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi. And David Bailey, of course, is pitching them on the UAE becoming a Bitcoin superpower. We know that Dubai is a huge hub for the Bitcoin and crypto industry due to the very, very favorable tax regulations happening over there. And here, of course, is the man, the myth, the legend, President Trump, and the UAE Sheikh, and of course, talking about the $1.4 trillion investment. Now, if it was just this picture alone, I think it would be a nothing burger. But the fact that, you know, the Sheikh met with the crypto czar, the AI czar, I think speaks volumes. And again, we know that there was just a massive Bitcoin conference in the United Arab Emirates. Anyways, let's check out this article by Cointelegraph. Trump's crypto czar meets UAE's national security advisor on crypto and AI. White House crypto and AI czar David Sachs was among a number of Trump administration officials who recently met with UAE officials to discuss emerging technologies and UAE's potential plans to increase its investment in the United States. The Sheikh, the Gulf nation's national security advisor and brother of the country's president, said in a March 20th X post that he had spoken with Sachs about AI's impact and the expanding role of digital currencies. U.S. President Donald Trump hosted the Sheikh for dinner at the White House on March 18th and posted this on his Truth Social platform a day later that he and senior U.S. officials discussed with the Sheikh ways for our countries to increase our partnerships for the advancing of our economic and technological futures. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. The United States just posted from their X account, the current administration, that they have every intention of the United States becoming, quote, the Bitcoin capital of the world. So, I mean, you can make a pretty good bet. I mean, he did mention it in the post, but you can make a pretty good bet that Bitcoin or crypto was definitely part of those conversations. The exact details of the Sheik's multiple discussions were not made public, and it was a closed door meeting. But Bloomberg reported on March 19th that people familiar with his meetings with Trump said he planned to talk about technology, energy, and increasing the UAE's investment in the US. Anyways, it just keeps on going. But you guys get the point. I'm just leave it right here. Look at that. They definitely brought up Bitcoin once or twice. Anyways, I do want to open it up to the panel. I do want to give a shout out to our boy Mauricio for joining us on the show today. Guys, this is pretty exciting. What I posted the other day, and Mauricio and I were talking about this before we got on air, but what I posted the other day was, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, is in terms of news, this cycle has been the best cycle ever. In terms of price action, this cycle has been pretty boring. So, I mean, is it, is it, are we heading into the next 4 years going to be absolutely bonkers? Because if you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, all these other countries looking at Bitcoin, the rubber stamp of approval by the United States government, there's an official, the IMF finally concedes that Bitcoin can be used as a form of money. There's news coming out of Russia that they're looking into following in the footsteps of the United States. Obviously, from a strategic perspective, they have to. I think these next 4 years are going to be absolutely explosive. But I think a lot of people are let down that this amazing news isn't being properly reflected in the price action as of yet. I mean, things have changed. We definitely ran up from 82K, 83K. We're at $88,000. I think we hit like 88,700 this morning. So I think things are definitely warming up. My opinion, I don't think we're out of the woods yet till we cross 100K. Mauricio, I'm going to pass it on to you, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, hey Nico. I think I echo a lot of what you just said. I think my take or my interpretation of what we're seeing in the market and why you're not seeing Bitcoin rally when you get news like these or headlines like the one you just went over is I think we're at a point in time where the market has gotten a lot of exciting announcements of things that are going to happen. So the digital asset or the Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's announced. It's still up in the air around how it's actually going to materialize. What is actual mechanics? What are the actual amounts? Same with these types of, we are going to potentially invest up to this amount in the United States. Like these are promises. And promises, a plethora of promises has already been made by the Trump administration. Some of them have already been kept, like releasing Ross and these others. There was an executive order around the digital asset stockpile or the Bitcoin strategic reserve, which I think a lot of people, the reaction there was that it was an executive order. Executive orders can be done by the next administration too. This wasn't something that was passed through Congress or the Senate through the actual ringer of the lawmaking process and got stamped. This was something that the one president wrote, and the next guy could potentially write the opposite. And so I think the market is kind of announcement out. Like there's been too many announcements into the market about things that might be coming, but there's nothing that's actually coming into the market. Like another example would be the repeal of SAB 121. Yes, great, that was repealed. There haven't been since any banks necessarily announcing that they're going to be coming and doing these investments and the amounts for these investments, the specifics around these investments. So in general terms, I think what the market is waiting for is the translation of these announcements into practical realities, right? Like, will any of this $1.4 trillion be deployed into any type of Bitcoin infrastructure in the US? It's TBD. There's no commitments there. There's nothing signed or guaranteed. Similarly, with some of the SAB 121s, right? Like it's been repealed. Okay, how many banks are going to come in? How big are their operations going to be? How heavy are they going to come into the space? So the market's really saying, okay, the announcements have been made. Some of these changes have been enacted. Where's the action? Where's the money actually going to come in? And can we stop making announcements and of things that are going to happen and start making announcements of things that they've actually gone out and done? And so I think that's the sort of frustrating, not frustrating, but this sort of highly anticipation. There's a lot of anticipation in the market, and we're waiting to see these announcements turn into actual investments. I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think everyone feels that, right? Like everyone's like, okay, you know, show me the goods, right? Show me the goods. The strategic Bitcoin reserve. You're hearing the talk from Bo Hines. We're gonna play you guys a clip during the numbers, basically saying that look, like we're looking into potentially selling, some of the gold to buy Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Act was reintroduced by Senator Lummis, but it's kind of like, show me the goods. Show me the goods. And then also not to mention the current monetary environment, right? The rates, they're still a little bit high, right? People are anticipating that by the end of the year, they're going to be lowered. We're still in a QT environment. I know it's slowed down. That was Powell mentioned that last week, but that's the reality, right? Are we ever going back into a QE environment? Are they going to turn on the money printers again? That'd be absolutely awesome. But that's the reality of the situation. I think a lot of people are frustrated, especially because of the their previous experiences in the last cycles. I mean, if you can't deny this, right? If you compare this cycle to the previous cycles, Bitcoin would be a lot higher right now. Like if you put the 2021 cycle on top of the 2025 cycle, 2021 already made it already peaked. The first peak already happened, right? So that's gnarly.
No, yeah.
Mauricio?
Another consideration on that is that back in 2017 or 2021, Bitcoin was half the price, right? Like today, it takes hundreds of billions of dollars to move the price of Bitcoin. And as in 10 more people coming in, or on the margin, another million people coming in, it becomes harder and harder and harder to move the price of an asset as the asset becomes bigger. And so as these cycles grow and mature, everyone's expecting, I think the sort of textbook view of this is that volatility compresses over time, and sort of the peaks and the troughs are less and less extreme until this thing starts trading a lot more like gold. So it's just another thing to consider, is that I don't think that in order for the quantum rally size of each cycle to continue, there's got to be a relative size of new money vis-a-vis the existing pie coming in. So, if it's $1 trillion, we're going to need $500 billion to move it. If it's 2 trillion, we're going to need 1 full trillion to move it, so on and so forth. And so that additional demand on the margin will not necessarily maintain the pace that it takes for every cycle to be exactly the same, regardless of the base size of the pool of the asset itself. So I think it's something to consider, which is, $100 million coming into the market in 2017 had a very different impact that $100 million coming into the market today. Like if MicroStrategy's order of 584 million market buy over the weekend had come in 2017, this thing would have broken the charts. So it's today it's just a drop in the bucket. So I think it's just important to consider how big this thing continues to get as we look at potential further, more aggressive price appreciation.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really good perspective, right? The market cap is absolutely massive. It's what, 1.8, 1.7, 1.8 trillion dollars. It's absolutely enormous. It was a lot easier when it was, at $100 billion, $200 billion market cap. You're 100% correct on that. Now, my question to you before I pass it on to Opti, my legendary co-host, Mauricio, is Bitcoin becoming boring? Is the opportunity gone? Like are we just looking at the S&P, like, oh my God, 3% movement today.
Okay.
Mauricio, what's your take?
So what I think it's funny because sometimes people tell me that the Bitcoin mimicking the S&P 500 is boring. I don't think people fully appreciate that 90% of the free world doesn't have access to US equities. And the best thing they can do with their money oftentimes is turn it into cash and put it under their mattress, because even keeping gold safe is very difficult in most of these markets. So if I told a person that is keeping dollars under their mattress that they can go out and buy an unseizable, uncensorable, unstoppable asset that mimics the returns of the greatest equity market in the world, that would be the most exciting proposition you've made to this person, probably since they found their first job or they understood what money was. So for me, the S&P, Bitcoin mimicking the S&P or just mimicking the world's money supply, is not boring. It's an incredibly effective shield for someone's wealth, no matter where they are. And for someone who thinks that having access to the S&P 500 is boring, I can understand that coming from a North American sort of OECD point of view. But for most of the world, having access to the S&P 500 or quasi S&P 500-ish instrument is one of the most liberating things that you can propose to them.
Yeah, 100%. No, and again, they have access to it's part of what you guys do as well. Like what I love what you guys do is that you guys offer loans to anyone worldwide because of the with the power of Bitcoin. That was not possible before. You'd have to, run a credit check or it'd be too high risk. But, it doesn't matter where you are. You offer Bitcoin as collateral. You guys don't put yourself at risk and they have access to capital, which is insane. That's absolutely revolutionary. So I'm really, really glad that you brought that up. Now, I do want to pass it on to Opti, but one more question, Mauricio. Is the opportunity in Bitcoin gone?
No, no, absolutely not. The opportunity of Bitcoin is going to go away when fiat starts acting how it should act and governments stop being irresponsible. I think this is not at all, you know, uh, a question mark around Bitcoin's value prop. I think just like everything else, it'll go in cycles, right? There will be times where fiat currencies are managed more irresponsibly than others, right? Like in the 2020s, we printed what 30 to 40% of the money supply globally. So yes, Bitcoin ripped. Over the next 40 years, like, is there a case for the money supply to be managed slightly more responsibly over the next 4 years after a drunken episode of 40% of the money supply printing? Yes, I think that's what we're going through right now. I think everybody's hungover from all the printing. Everybody's saying, okay, was that really necessary? What can we do to not make the pain be so dramatic? And that gets reflected. And it's funny. Seyfedin says this, like, what is the biggest risk to Bitcoin? Well, the biggest risk for Bitcoin is that central banks stop running deficits. And it's funny because right now we're going into an era where deficits are being questioned. They are being called out. Governments are being put in the hot seat for overspending, and you're going to have a little bit of reversion of the mean, and that may mean that some of the risk assets have there's not as much fuel getting thrown into the fire. Therefore, risk assets aren't going to be going at the sort of supersonic speed that they had gone. But what life has showed me is that these are cycles, and that eventually they will find the next excuse to print 30% of the money supply and the next excuse to print X% of the money, because it's the easy way out. And so for us, we just need to keep our heads down, continue to build. The asset's going to do what the asset does, and when the drunken sailors come out again, Bitcoin will do its thing again, as it always does.
Amen. Beautifully put. Opti in the house. Before I pass it on to Opti, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. Absolutely kicking ass this Monday. 1,611 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X, and about 100 of you guys watching live on Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 150 likes within the first, let's say, 30 minutes of the show. So smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content so far. Anyways, Opti, 20 minutes before you've had your chance to speak, I was just so interested in what Mauricio was saying.
First thing first, W drunken sailors. We want them drunken sailors back in the market. Please pump the bags. Obviously, we are kind of trolling. But one thing you did say, Nico, is is Bitcoin boring? Is Bitcoin basically the S&P 500? If I remember correctly, the S&P 500 is like roughly $50 trillion. So I don't know. It sounds like we still have a lot of room to run, considering Bitcoin's less than 2 trillion right now. So if that's boring to get to that number, I don't know. I think we're super jaded here in terms of Bitcoin price appreciation, but it is very interesting. I think Mauricio makes a really good point, because if you would have told us years ago, like when I got in Bitcoin 2017, all the news we're hearing, would the Bitcoin price pump? You'd be like, yes, of course. Like, this is outside of probably the realm of what a lot of us thought would happen this quickly, but we haven't factored in that the market is a lot bigger now. And yes, there is a lot of players that are talking about getting into Bitcoin. Like, the rhetoric around Bitcoin has fundamentally changed, but we haven't seen that much actual capital flow into Bitcoin. Yes, we got the best ETF launch ever. Yes, we're seeing talks of nation state FOMO, and that's all very exciting, but the actual, you know, the real movements and action hasn't actually happened right now. But we are starting to see that, hey, no matter what's going on, Bitcoin is still holding pretty solid around 80, 90K right now. And now we're looking like we're going to start making that move towards 90K. So I would say everything is super bullish around Bitcoin. I think it's going to pop at a certain time, but we do have to factor in that there is a lot of economic certainty going on in the world right now, especially with all the things Trump's doing.
I mean, uncertainty.
What I say, certainty. Yeah, economic uncertainty, especially with all the stuff that Trump's doing. So, like, people aren't sure what to do with their money. And for the vast majority of people, they still look at Bitcoin as a risk-off asset. So there obviously are a risk-on asset. Sorry, we're the ones that think it's a risk-off asset. They think it's a risk-on asset. So they're not going to dump a lot of money into Bitcoin right now when they're just like not sure what is going on in the markets. So there's a lot of things playing out. But I think as Bitcoin does start to make its move, and obviously it's a good speculation whether it's coming from the UAE or the Middle East is saving this bull market. We did hear for a while the rumors about them waiting till Trump announced a SBR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, to start to announce their move. So this could be part of that kind of slow rollout. Maybe they don't want to really expose their hand so much yet, but part of this economic framework, and this is coming out of the Hill, is essentially saying that the UAE will increase its existing investment in U.S. economy and AI infrastructure, semiconductors, energy, and American manufacturing. So it doesn't necessarily say Bitcoin, but there is a lot of stuff that does kind of announce Bitcoin mining.
He did say
I know,
digital assets.
but once the framework like kind of came out afterwards, that discussion was like, we're discussing digital currencies, and then the 1.4 trillion investments didn't actually say Bitcoin or digital currencies yet, but I think it's loosely essentially saying like, hey, we're going to invest in energy, and everyone knows that Bitcoin is backed by energy. And it's like, if they're going to do smart stuff with AI infrastructure, we know that Bitcoin mining and AI infrastructure is basically one and the same thing at this point. So I think there is a lot of bullish information kind of building up, and we're not going to see anything kind of probably until like, next month. I think once Q1 ends, we'll start to hear some of these big announcements of people buying Bitcoin, but it's all leaning towards bullish. And I mean, I think we're all a little jaded right now. It's like, why isn't the price pumping? I was promised 150K first 100 days, and we're like 90 days in, and we haven't got it yet, but maybe the next 20 days is going to be super lit.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. 1,800 of you guys watching live between YouTube and X, and almost 100 of you guys watching live on Rumble. 500 live viewers on YouTube alone. Anyways, smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. You guys are listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. We have a loaded show for you guys. We're going to be talking about Trump's advisor. According to this article, U.S. may sell gold to buy Bitcoin. I just want to echo what Mauricio is saying, right? We have all this news, but we want to see action. We want to see action, right? That's where we are in the movie. Anyways, also, Mauricio is an absolute legend, and he wrote an article for Forbes, and the article is called Breaking Down Strategies Recent Preferred Stock Offerings. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about the highlights of the week and the highlights of the previous week. So it's going to be interesting during the news segment. And of course, during the culture segment, we're going to be talking about all things Ledin. So guys, it's going to be a jam-packed show. Like I said, if you guys are enjoying it, smash that like button. Help us break. I'm going to raise the target 200 likes by the end of the show. 200 likes, 250 likes. Smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the content. Anyways, before we jump into it, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin sponsor, the best place to build your automatic Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform for higher net worth individuals looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. If you're looking for a white glove service, if you want a personal representative assigned to your account every time you want to buy or sell Bitcoin, you can text them, you can call them, ask them any question you might have. Check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC to get started. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points. And you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're doing live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan today's QR code has won 2,100 sats. I think that's like $2 or something. Anyways, every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well, you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. And just for signing up to bitcoinwell.com and using promo code simplybtc or going to bitcoinwell.com/simply, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody, we are back. Guys, if you use promo code SIMPLY, scan the QR code on your screen, you get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 88,000. Block height, 889,250. Sats per dollar, 1,136. Market cap, 1.75 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.29%. Percentage issued, 94.48%. Decline from all-time high, negative 19.4%. Realized monetary inflation, 0.91%. Continuing to take fiat currencies to absolute school. Anyways, this is what I wanted to talk about. This is crazy. So, according to this article from forexlive.com, this is the headline for the audio listeners. Trump advisor said U.S. may sell gold to buy Bitcoin. Robert Bo Hines, executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, spoke with media on Friday. If the move to sell some of the gold in Fort Knox to buy Bitcoin remained budget neutral, it could be considered. This is of interest because in Trump's announcement of a Bitcoin reserve earlier this month, he said that the government will acquire Bitcoin in the future through budget neutral ways. The reason that they keep having to say budget neutral ways, by the way, is there's only so much Trump could do via executive order. What really needs to happen, and for this strategic Bitcoin reserve to have longevity, right? It needs to go through the legislative process. The Bitcoin Act needs to be passed in the Senate. Do they have the votes? I asked Senator Lummis this question in DC. Actually, Mauricio was there. He came on the show that day that I had the interview, and I was in a full suit. And I asked Senator Lummis this. I said, do you have the votes? And she felt really good about it. But I think that, that's the question. Do they have the votes to pass this? But anyways, more details here. Later in Hines' interview, he referred to Senator Lummis's Bitcoin bill as an example of a budget-neutral way to buy Bitcoin. The Lummis legislation, in brief, to create a Bitcoin strategic reserve, would direct the government to purchase 1 million Bitcoins over 5 years. Funds for the Bitcoin purchases would come from diversifying existing funds in the Federal Reserve System. Does that mean selling gold? Who knows? Is the gold even at Fort Knox? Anyways, I have a clip of Bo Hines on a recent interview. Let's check it out, and then we'll all talk about it.
The US has already acquired about 200,000 BTC. That's worth about $17 billion. Strategy CEO Michael Saylor is suggesting that the US acquire up to 25% of the Bitcoin supply by 2035. What would be the target amount for the United States in your view?
Well, I get asked this question a lot, and I think the answer to that, like I said at the summit yesterday, is as much as we can possibly get, so long as it's in budget neutral ways that don't cost the taxpayer a dime. I think we have a lot of high IQ people in the building that are working on this, and folks over at the Treasury office and folks over at Commerce, working with the internal working group that was set up in the first digital assets EO. We'll be able to come up with ways to accumulate more really over the course of the next few years and beyond that. I mean, look, we view Bitcoin as being digital gold. That's why we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the way that we did, right? Bitcoin is a commodity. It's not a security. As our AI and cryptos are, David Sachs likes to say, it has the immaculate conception, meaning that there's no issuer. It has intrinsic stored value that's traditionally accepted. And we feel like it's in the best interest of Americans to hold on to this asset long term and accumulate as much as we can get. That's why we've akin this to digital gold and talked about building the digital Fort Knox for the United States. And, you mentioned the Bitcoin that we have possession of. We've actually been in possession of nearly 400,000 Bitcoin. We sold roughly half of that prematurely at about, I think it was close to $370 million is what we sold it for. If we would have held on to that, it would have been worth $17 billion today. I mean, it just goes to show you how important this asset is and what we can do with it to benefit the American people. One thing that I've said repeatedly throughout the media circuit is that I think it's really nice that we have a president that's actually looking to accumulate assets for Americans rather than take it away, unlike the last regime that we had here at the White House. But we feel very confident about our plan. We feel confident about the internal working group that was set up in that first EO. And
all right, everybody. So, I mean, I'm gonna pass it on to Mauricio. Mauricio, what's your analysis here? I mean, this is crazy. If we were talking about this, back in the day, man, the 2017 era, one of the copes that we had in 2017, 2018, when the bear market hit in 2018, we all kept saying, the institutions are coming. The institutions are coming. They were never coming. They weren't even close to coming. The institutions are here without a shadow of a doubt. Not only the institutions, the most powerful and influential government on the face of the planet, the U.S., but again, the proof is in the pudding, man. It's what you said, like in the beginning. I think the point that you made was excellent, right? Like, a lot of talk. We got to see action here. So, what's your take, Mauricio, on this recent clip from Bo Hines?
I think, first, when I look at a clip, I like to sort of dissect who's speaking, what's their audience, what's their agenda, what are the what is their mandate to try to get out of the interview. And obviously, as an advisor for the as an economic advisor for digital assets, obviously what you want to convey is that there is this plan to go and acquire Bitcoin. Now, I think why this is meeting some resistance as far as public opinion and markets really translating this from an announcement into an actual price change is because I think what people are rightfully recognizing is that the United States is a government, right? Like they have a mandate to the entire country. They don't just have a mandate to Bitcoiners, right? And so although we would love for people to sell gold out of the reserves and buy Bitcoin with it, you have to understand that is going to be a big political debate. Like there's going to be groups and constituents everywhere that are going to be vouching or basically putting their hand up to get some of that money. Like I'll give you an example. What if you sold part of gold and reinvested that into the equity of other US businesses that could grow faster and then employ more people and build more things in the United States? I think that's going to be a big tension, right? Like it's one thing to say the US won't sell the Bitcoin it seizes. That I don't think anyone has an issue with, because they're not necessarily going out and spending money that could be spent elsewhere to get it. They're just taking something that they seized, they're not selling it, they'll put it into the reserves, and then it'll do its thing. But when you're actually getting rid of something else, i.e. your gold, and you're going to use that money to replace it with something else, how you do that is going to be subject of political debate and conversation. And it's not going to be a fast process. It's not going to be quick. I think, again, I wouldn't call myself a political expert per se, but just from my experience, I can tell you that any process to get rid of any part of any country's reserves and to turn them into something else is going to be subject to very heated political debate, not something you can get done through an executive order. And so this is where I think you're seeing some resistance. It's like a lot of promises, yes, but where's the bipartisan commitment to turn those promises into a reality? Until we have bipartisan commitment to make this a long-term thing, it's going to be perceived by markets and investors as a one-party issue, i.e., if they don't win the next election, this goes away. So I'm investing on a 4-year horizon, right? When I get bipartisan support, the horizon goes away. This thing it has longevity. I can go in and I don't have to worry about what the next administration is going to do. So I think until we start seeing some bipartisan actions that help Bitcoin go forward and that can be perceived as sustainable beyond this administration, that's when you're going to start seeing it translate into price. Until then, it's just going to be the ideas of one party that may or may not get the support it needs to become, a sustainable alternative.
I think that's an excellent point, and that's actually a question that I asked Senator Lummis as well, because there was a bill that was introduced into the House last year, and essentially the bill would forbade the U.S. government from launching a central bank digital currency. And it was literally along party lines. It was all the Republicans voted for the bill that would essentially forbade the U.S. government for launching a CBDC. And I would say 90% of Democrats voted against the bill. And if you take a look at the previous administration and how they treated the industry, it wasn't that great. Now, to be fair, it's not monolithic, right? There's Ro Khanna, a congressman from California, and he's very pro industry. But the Elizabeth Warren camp, I mean, Elizabeth Warren is the she's the head of the Senate Banking Committee for the Democratic Party, and we all know how Elizabeth Warren feels about the industry, right? So I completely agree with Mauricio. And also another thing too, guys, for you guys to understand about American politics, in the House, you just need a simple majority. In the Senate, if you want something to be filibuster proof, you need 60 votes. Republicans have 53 votes right now, and not all of them vote, with their party, right? So really, it's like 51 votes. You're still missing 9 votes, meaning you need 9 votes from the other side of the aisle to support that bill, right? And that's the reality. Now, to be totally transparent and clear with you guys, Bitcoin is it's a nonpartisan technology, a neutral technology. It's for everyone. It empowers everyone. But as long as it's still not seen that way, I agree with Mauricio, right? It's just, there's a lot of elements from certain parties that would want to get rid of the income tax. But of course, there's just not enough political support for it. This is what I've been saying this for many months now, and I'm really glad that you broke it down the way that you did, Mauricio. Anyways, I'm gonna pass it on to Opti. Opti does have to catch a flight in about 20 minutes or so.
I think after this segment, I'm popping off, Nico, just to be safe.
So he's going to be joining me down here in Fort Lauderdale. We're going to be live streaming the Mining Disrupt Conference, the largest Bitcoin mining conference in the world. Simply Bitcoin will be live streaming the entire conference. That's going to be happening on Wednesday and Thursday. So, of course, the whole Simply Bitcoin crew is coming down for it. But we'll have a show for you guys today, tomorrow, and of course for the rest of the week as well. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, my friend, before you got to catch a flight?
Yeah, I mean, look, I am as bullish as anyone on Bitcoin, but I think Mauricio is right. Like, I don't think it's politically viable for them to sell their Bitcoin sell their gold to stack Bitcoin. Like, not only is that not politically viable in just America in the terms of left and right paradigm, but I think globally we are just not there yet. Though I do like this idea that they are just, spitballing ideas publicly. Maybe this is some, misdirection stuff, or as Nico likes to say, moving the Overton window. So the fact they are even talking about like, hey, potentially maybe we'll sell the gold and buy Bitcoin. Us Bitcoiners are like, yo, like, as bullish as I am on Bitcoin, I don't think that's going to happen. But the fact they're just like kind of throwing it out there, like, yeah, that might be a budget neutral way to make this happen. We're just like, what world are we living in right now where we are just completely going away from this idea that we'll ever go back to a gold standard? We're like, yep, that's the past. We're just going to sell it all and buy Bitcoin. Obviously, I don't think we're there. And like Mauricio was saying, in America itself, there is pushback from the other side. It does seem like this is just a conservative Republican idea to go.
Oh, I think we dropped
Opti right now, and so we don't even have
Opti. You're in the matrix, my friend. You're in the matrix, my friend.
All right. Well, anyways, I'll pop off. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Opti. I'll see you soon, brother. But yeah, no, I agree. I think right now it's definitely more on the Republican camp, and it's not monolithic. But I would love to see more Democrats join. And that's really how bills get passed. And not only is that how bills get passed, but in terms of policy longevity, it needs to be bipartisan. I completely agree. Anyways, guys, we still have a loaded show for you guys. We have 2,160 live viewers between YouTube and X. 500 of you guys watching on YouTube alone. And of course, shout out to the Rumble audience. The Rumble audience is the most hardcore in the chat. They're absolutely savage. And we're on the verge of breaking 200 likes on the live stream on YouTube. Guys, help us break 250 likes by the time the show ends. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the news segment, and we're going to be talking about Mauricio's latest article on Forbes. The name of the article is Breaking Down Strategy's Recent Preferred Stock Offerings. And we're going to be doing a quick recap on what is ahead this week for Bitcoin and what happened last week for Bitcoin. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Bitcoin security matters, but managing private keys can sometimes be complicated, especially multi-sig. What if you can secure your Bitcoin without worrying about losing a seed phrase or giving up custody? With Casa, you can completely control your Bitcoin with multi-key security, so even if one key is lost or stolen, your funds stay safe. No single point of failure, no stress. That's what I absolutely love about these guys. They make taking Bitcoin into self-custody incredibly easy with their best in industry user experience through their app. I've been personally recommending Casa for years now to my friends and family because they will get all the benefits of multi-key self-custody security without the hassle of having to learn complicated UI. And if you're thinking of one day passing on your Bitcoin to the next generation, their inheritance plan has you covered. Also, if you're a business looking to add Bitcoin to your treasury, do it the secure way with Casa for Business. To get started, go to casa.io today and get 5% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium with promo code SIMPLY. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth
of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out ledin.io today.
All right, everybody, we are back. Mauricio's famous. He is a published author on Forbes. And this is one of his, I think he was famous before that, but now he's extra famous. Let's check out this recent article. I mean, first of all, before we jump into it, because I think a lot of people, and Mauricio, one of the times that you came on Simply Bitcoin, I actually even asked you, I said, dude, like, how does this infinite money glitch happen? And you did such a great job. Like, how does it work? It feels fake. And you did such a great job, like breaking it down, and kind of explaining the nuances of it based on your experience, right? So you wrote this article called Bitcoin Breaking Down Strategy's Recent Preferred Stock Offering. So I have a question for you. What inspired you to write this article in the first place?
Yeah, thanks, Nico. So typically when I write an article I'm oftentimes seeking to understand the subject better myself. And as you know, I've been pretty interested in the instruments that MicroStrategy has been putting out, the way they're using their cap table or their equity stack effectively to raise more equity, purchase Bitcoin, make Bitcoin part of their reserves. So I've been following their actions or their offerings relatively closely so that I can stay attuned to what is getting picked up by the market. And every time an offering is put out, you can tell a lot about the appetite for that offering based on the reaction to the offering, whether it was oversubscribed, whether it sold at the rate that it was planning to sell. So when I saw so about a month ago, they issued their first preferred stock, which was their STRK offering. And then last month, they issued that STRF offering. Why I became interested in these instruments and I wanted to write about them is because up until this year, MicroStrategy had been issuing debt at 0% coupon. So these are bonds where MicroStrategy didn't have to pay interest on these bonds. They were 0% bonds. They just had a convertibility factor, but that's not a net cash outlay for MicroStrategy. So they were basically getting 0% money and no interest payment obligations to acquire the Bitcoin via the bond issuances. Similarly, when they were offering at the money equities, they were selling shares from the treasury into the market at the price that people were willing to pay, and then taking that money to buy Bitcoin. Again, no requirement to pay anybody any monthly anything. It's just a straight sale of equity to buy Bitcoin. And in the bond, in the case of the bond, it was just a 0% bond with no interest payments to buy Bitcoin. So in neither of these cases, there's a cash flow strain on the business because there's no ongoing cash flow requirements for these ways of raising interest. Enter the preferred shares. And so when STRK was announced earlier this year, I believe it was end of January, he announced the first preferred offering that had a dividend. So this is a 10% a year dividend that has the options, and you can read the article for the nuances, but it starts at 10%. And if it doesn't get paid, it starts growing and it can go up to 18%. And this was true for STRK, and I believe it is the same thing for STRF. What's very interesting about these instruments is that they are the first time MicroStrategy is putting out an offering that has a monthly cash flow obligation. So in the case of these STRF and STRK, the two offerings actually have the same yield. So what does this mean? If you read through the article, you will realize that they offered the first issuance. The key thing to focus on this conversation is this idea that these preferred shares carry a yield or a dividend, okay? And this is important for a few reasons. One, it means that MicroStrategy has to, in theory, pay out 10% of the money that it raised through these sales. So to put some numbers around these things, I believe the first offering was 584. The second offering was another, call it 584. So let's call it, I think if they both go to according to plan, it'll be about $150 million worth of debt that MicroStrategy is taking on every year. Now, these are dividends that the board has to call. So MicroStrategy is not obligated to pay if the board believes that it cannot pay it, if they're not in the financial shape they need to be to pay it. But there is already a commitment out to the market that these will get paid. So even though they have the option not to pay them, if they don't pay them, they could greatly hurt their stock price. So what I did is really just say, okay, how much is MicroStrategy committing to paying in terms of these dividends, which are, by the way, not legally binding. They can be called off, but let's just say everything played out the way it's supposed to play out. MicroStrategy is then having to pay $150 million a year worth of interest for these preferred shares. And that number could be higher if they go unpaid. Then you turn around and you say, okay, well, what is MicroStrategy's operating cash flow from its software business? Because we know Bitcoin doesn't give him operating cash flows. So if you look at the software business and you look at the operating cash flows of that business, based on their earnings reports, you can get into a pretty good estimate that the company has around $150 to $180 million worth of free cash flows every year. What that translates to is that if these offerings play out the way the way they're designed, and if there are no material changes to the operating business of MicroStrategy, Strategy has now committed to effectively paying almost all of it, potentially more than the operating cash flows of its business, which then begs the question, what happens if these dividends have to get paid and there's not enough operating cash flows in the business? What are the options? And at the end of the article, just to summarize it, the options are either A, MicroStrategy doesn't pay it because they don't have to legally pay it. They could just say, I'm sorry, we believe the board believes we're not in the financial fitness shape, we need to pay this out. That would hurt the stock price. And then if they do then decide to pay it out, then you have to see, are they making enough money from their software business? So it's a long way of saying, as MicroStrategy's offerings become more and more sophisticated and they start tacking on things like dividends and others, you really have to dig deep to understand what are the potential outcomes from these offerings and what are the potential risks, because I don't believe in infinite money machines, and I don't believe in zero risk anything. So I always like to try to understand what are the risks, what could go wrong. And that was basically my summary of the analysis I did for Strategy's offering.
No, and that money, so that was, first of all, an excellent breakdown. And clearly you did a ton of research and just kind of exploring into, because again, it's insane financial engineering, right? Like what is happening. And in a way, like he's not paying very much to borrow this money at all,
Well, if you look at it, that's actually, because if you start reading into it, he's paying more for this than he paid for the bond, because the bond he got at 0% with convertibility. And in these ones, and this is another part of the nuance of this offering, which is important to know. These offerings are getting sold into the market at $80 and then $85. STRK was 80, STRF was 85. They have a liquidation preference of $100, each one of them. So he's already having to offer a higher liquidation preference than the market he's selling it for, than the market price he's selling it for. On top of that, you're tacking on the 10% dividend. So Lennon loans come out at 12.4%. Michael is not that far off now at 10%, the borrowing to buy Bitcoin. So what I'm trying to say is that the cost of capital of Bitcoin-backed financing, if you're looking at this in the free market, because right now, because SAB 121 and the sort of restraints that have been placed on the banks, the cost of capital for this business is basically 10%, around 10%. And Michael was getting away with just offering a convertible option on the bonds because that would make up the 10% back then. Today, that option, he has to give the preference plus the option or plus the yield. And so it is still working, but it's becoming more and more expensive, is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you something too, Mauricio. Like, what is the risk? Like, where can he? Because of course, like I'm comparing it right with Ledin, it's the loan to value, right? Like,
Yeah.
you obviously you want to have enough collateral, or else you risk essentially getting margin called. Is it a very, and the reason I'm bringing that up is like to try to make an analogy. Does he find himself in a very similar situation? Like, is he over leveraging MicroStrategy?
I don't think he's over leveraging today. I think if you look at the stack or the position the Bitcoin positions they hold, and you look at the debt plus the pref, so he put out about $1.5 billion of these prefs. He's got about 5 or 6 billion out in bonds. His Bitcoin position is somewhere in the 40 billions. So right now he's, call it 25% loan to value, is what I would say. But that's creeping higher, right? And the interesting thing with that is, I think he still has. I think he's still managing this responsibly, but I think you're starting to bump up into that edge, because right now the cash flows of the business are basically matched to the servicing cost of your prefs. And so anything from now onwards is going to start getting very scrutinized by the market.
Gotcha.
And I don't think the market feels too concerned, because if you look at the price action, the prefs are actually outperforming the commons, and both the pref and the commons are outperforming the ETF. So the market still likes this combo, but it's getting more and more hard. It's getting harder and harder to understand. And as things get harder and harder to understand, you start, people start buying it without fully grasping the whole thing. And that's where you start getting into risks, taking on risks you don't understand.
Do you think he can get to 1 million Bitcoin?
It'll be hard. It'll be very hard. I think so. I mean, can he get to it? Theoretically, yes. Anyone can get to it, theoretically. But practically speaking, you're going to be driving up the price quite a bit, and you're going to have to take some risks along the way to get there, right? And so it's not really about can he get there, it's how does he get there, and is it sustainable? Like, I'll give you an example. If you look at the lending business is a great business. Look at Ledin today, because it was responsible to where it got. We had other guys that were bigger than us, theoretically, had more money, they had more equity, they had raised a lot more. They didn't know how to get there responsibly, right? Like, lending is 5 times today what it was back in 2021. But there's a lot of guys that didn't get there because they were very irresponsible along the way. So can he get there? Yes, but it's not necessarily like, in theory, yes, you can get there. How is where the nuance and the risk is. And so the reason I got my spidey senses got perked up when I saw these offerings is because when I saw a dividend. When I saw a dividend, and I know you have no cash flow or very limited cash flow, that to me was when I said, okay, what happens if they don't have it? Then they have to go and sell some Bitcoin to pay it off. And so that starts depressing the price, and the same thing that was virtuous on the way out becomes vicious on the way down. And so this is why I think now that there are these obligations for these dividends, and the cash flow that the business generates is very limited, I think from now on, I'm going to be paying very close attention to a lot of these offerings.
Interesting. It's becoming more and more sophisticated, more and more complicated. In order for him to raise money, in order for him to buy Bitcoin, and more risky, right? What you were saying, he's not getting 0%, getting closer to 10%. But again, as long as number goes up, things are okay. But eventually, number goes down.
Yeah.
If you've been in this industry long enough, number eventually goes down. I'm gonna drop the article, by the way, in the live chat for you guys. If you guys want to go check out Mauricio's. Now he's a top. He's in Forbes. Everybody, go check out this latest article by Mauricio. I dropped it in the live chat. I do want to bring up this. This was a total coincidence. We did not plan this, but check this out. So Simply did a weekly recap, which of course is powered by our friends over at Ledin, and broke down a couple things that happened last week. So Elon Musk exposes 14 government magic money printers. That video was crazy, by the way. BlackRock calls BTC a global monetary alternative. Trump's executive director, US will acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. Trump, America will be the undisputed BTC superpower. And then our friends over at Ledin, you guys did the opposite of we did, which is highlights for the week ahead instead of highlights of what happened, highlights of what's coming. So let's do a quick breakdown. And also, Mauricio did author this as well. That's correct, right, Mauricio?
Yes, I do. I've been doing them for, I don't know, 6 years now. And this used to be basically my homework for the week. So every time a new week is starting, I look at what's coming up for Bitcoin, what could move the markets, so that I'm not caught off guard when they actually happen. And so this takes quite a bit of work, but I like putting it out, and people seem to find a lot of value from it. So basically, what I do is I go through the week ahead, what announcements are coming from either the Fed, central banks, SEC, et cetera, that could impact the space, House hearings, Senate hearings. And then I put it all in this quick summary that people can read. And if we look at the week, if we look at this week, I'm just going to pull it up here on my screen. Today is a pretty light day, only 2 Fed member speeches. Tomorrow, we have this interesting House Financial Services hearing titled Beyond Silicon Valley, Expanding Access to Capital Across America. Why I put this in here is because access to capital could, relate to crypto, and anything that can impact crypto could potentially filter back into Bitcoin prices. Wednesday, we get inflation out of the United Kingdom. Not too much there in terms of macro. But then Thursday and Friday is when things get exciting. And I'm going to spend most of my time talking about Friday, which is the options expirations for Bitcoin. There's about 11.6, almost $12 billion worth of options expiring on Friday at 4 a.m. And for those of us who've been in the trading space or in markets, you pay very close attention to these options expirations. And what does this mean? What is this concept of a max pain price, and why does this have gravity in the markets? Like, why is 85 an important number going into Friday? The reason 85 is an important number going into Friday is because what max pain price means is that on the selling side of options, there's usually a sophisticated investor. You either hold the shares and you're selling calls, or have the cash and you're selling puts. So if you're selling these options, you're generally a sophisticated investor or a market maker. If you're on the buying side of these, you're generally a speculator. So the max pain price is basically when most of the price at which most of these options expire worthless. And it creates the maximum pain to the speculators who bought them, and the maximum benefit to the institutions that sold them. And the institutions that sold them have very, very large balances. Therefore, they can, in many ways, participate in the markets such that come Friday at 4 a.m., it lands on a price that they are benefiting from. So 85K is the max pain price for this expiration, which is a quarterly expiration. Every month you have expirations at the last Friday of the month, but every quarter, the last Friday of the month at which the quarter ends, you have the quarterly expirations. And the quarterlies are used by a larger number of institutions. And so they have much more concentrated basic volumes expiring during the quarterlies. So I would be paying close attention to 85 going into Friday. And to keep an eye out on these things going forward, you can just check in and turn on your alerts. Every Sunday we post what's up for the week ahead, and we'll keep posting them under your amazing summary so that people can get, what happened and what's coming all in one go.
That's right, guys. If you want to see what happened in the week before, check out Simply. And you want to see what's going to be happening in the week ahead, check out Ledin. And you guys will be able to see it in the Simply thing. And also, Mauricio, very impressed, man. It's like this is like a crystal ball of what's to come, right?
This to me is one of the most underappreciated assets in the entire Bitcoin space, because it is the homework that every institutional grade investor, every sophisticated investor, we are all looking at these markers. Whenever there is a move on a Wednesday because the Fed announced a Fed rate decision, we can't be surprised by this. We need to be going into the week knowing exactly what we believe will happen, so that we can then adjust and rejig. But it's basically an amazing tool, and one that it's free. Anyone can come and use it. Even if you're not a Ledin client, you can come and check this out every week.
Absolutely. Guys, go follow Ledin on X at Hodl with Ledin. Anyways, guys, before we move on to the culture segment, which we're going to talk about all things Ledin, for anyone who doesn't know, I do want to give a shout out to, or my CFO is going to kill me. I do want to give a shout out to the new Simply Bitcoin merch that just dropped. It's limited. Get yours while supplies last. This has been flying off the shelves. One of the snapback is already sold out. So we're already kind of sold out on some sizes as well. So check out the hoodie. I'm wearing the hoodie right now. It's extremely comfortable. It literally says Simply Bitcoin in the tags. We pay attention to detail. Very, very high quality. So head over to simplybitcoin.com and buy some Bitcoin first. But if you want to support the show and the channel, check it out. Anyways, guys, we're going to hit the culture segment. We have tons to talk about. We will be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's positioned to quadruple their global footprint in 2025. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to make moves in sustainable, high-performance computing. They consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, and now they're headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. You can catch the latest buzz by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, I am holding the Cold Card Q in my hand. It is our daily driver. It is absolutely incredibly easy to use. It doesn't sacrifice convenience for security. As a full Q, whatever keyboard, has all the letters. It's very easy, guys. Check out this hardware wallet. Has a little camera on top so you can scan QR codes. Has the NFC so you can just tap. And of course, you can sign transactions with a SD card as well. Guys, go get the Cold Card Q, best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market today. Scan the QR code on your screen. If you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 5% off anything on the store. Anyhow, we got Mauricio in the house today, and we're going to talk about all things Ledin. So I want to talk about my experience first with Ledin, because I think it was Mauricio that kind of walked me through it. I was like messaging him, and anyhow, so without naming any names, I had a Bitcoin back loan for a while, and me and Mauricio were going back and forth, and I ended that loan, but I obviously didn't want to sell Bitcoin, so I kind of rolled it over, like, paid it back, and then I started another loan, a new loan with Ledin. And one of the things that surprised me the most was the fact that there's no monthly payments. That blew my mind. I remember I hit up Mauricio. I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, like, dude, am I not making my payments? And I hit up Mauricio. I'm like, yo, And he's like, no, dude, like it just accrues and you pay it back at the end of the term and then you can roll it over. That to me was my favorite feature because essentially you need like if you need cash, you don't want to sell your Bitcoin. It's not a taxable event because it's a loan. Uh, at the end of the day, you still have to make monthly payments, but you guys don't have monthly payments, which was very, very, very nice. So that was one of my favorite features. And then, okay, so that was my first experience. My second experience was the how fast you get the cash, right? So think about it. Like you have to put yourself in the mindset. Let's say you send a coin or whatever. You send a coin, to a platform, and then you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then I think I messaged Mauricio. I was like, yo, dude, I sent the coin. And within 24 hours, I got the cash in my account. Bada bing, bada boom. I was like making sure Mauricio was like, did I put the right account number? And now it's been a great experience because it's all about trust, right? You kind of you have to establish trust. And at the end of the day, you are giving away custody of your Bitcoin, right? You are doing that. So you have to do it with an institution or a company that you trust. And so far I've had such an amazing experience using you guys personally. So it's been great to partner with you guys as well. And seems like the fans are the audience is liking it also. Now I do want to talk about the use cases. So why would someone take a loan? Like why would someone, give up custody of their Bitcoin? Why would they give up custody of their Bitcoin? Why would they take on a loan? What is the most common thing you guys see on your end?
Yeah, so I'm thank you, by the way. A couple of points before I go to answer your question. So number one, you have the best partners in Bitcoin for this show. Like I love Casa, I love Cold Card, I obviously love Ledin. You have like an amazing suite of the things that I use, which is excellent. So the other point that I was going to mention is on this point of no monthly interest payments. There is a very real economic benefit to this, and I'm working on I guess an essay or some content to demonstrate the economic value of not having to pay interest rate or not having to pay interest every month, because we are in fact allowing you to not come up with 1% or approximately 1% of the amount you borrowed every month. So if you assume that the cost of your capital for those interest payments is the same cost of capital for the loan itself, you are actually tacking on almost 1% extra if you're borrowing from a company that does require monthly interest payments. So there's a very real, like their 12 is not our 12, their 13 is not our 13. Your actual money out the door is a lot higher when you're having to make monthly payments. But to bring you to your question, the matter at hand, which is what do people take loans for? So a loan is not necessarily something. A loan is something I'd like to define as a non-discretionary use. What does that mean? People don't typically wake up one morning and say, "Oh my God, it's a great day for a loan today. I'm going to take it, and then I'm going to see what happens with my life after I take out the loan." The way this process generally comes about is you're going about your life. You get hit with, say, an unexpected tax bill, right? Like you now have to come up with a couple $100,000 or $100,000 to pay the government for whatever transactions you did the year before. You weren't necessarily accounting to have to put that cash all out the door. And now all of a sudden you're saying, okay, I have to pay $100,000. What do I have $100,000 in the bank? No. Can I borrow that $100,000 from my home equity line of credit? No, I can only borrow this much. So you'll start going through the sources of cash to pay. And then eventually you will realize that your Bitcoin can be used as collateral for the loan that you need, that you can get the loan within 24 hours and you don't lose the upside on the Bitcoin. So the two main reasons you would borrow from your Bitcoin instead of selling it is, number one, you don't trigger a taxable event most often, because borrowing from it is, again, most often not a taxable event by way of selling. You're not parting ways with the asset. The second one is you get to keep the upside. So a big thing that the Bitcoins used to say is, oh, why don't you just sell Bitcoin, do what you need to do, and then buy back Bitcoin? later on. And anyone that's tried to do that will tell you just don't buy back the same amount because Bitcoin goes up and to the right, and because you have to pay taxes on the initial sale. And so you're just never able to get back to where you were. So you lose the trajectory of the asset itself, and then you may trigger a taxable event. The use cases that we are seeing today, believe it or not, in North America, one of the most common use cases is buying property. So people are holding on to the Bitcoin they had for 5 years. It's gone from about 30K to now 500K. They are married. They are having their first baby or their second baby. Wife wants to move to a bigger place. Husband doesn't want to sell the Bitcoin. What can we do? Let's find. And I'm saying there's these memes out there that like of these cases where my husband doesn't want to sell the Bitcoin. Like, this is real. we have dealt with these people, and they will come in, and the compromise generally becomes, well, I'm not selling the Bitcoin. I'm going to use it as collateral. I'm going to get the cash I need. I'm going to buy the home you want, love, and where our kids can, we can buy send the kids to the school we want, etc. It's this way of porting your Bitcoin wealth into your real world experience. A lot of our clients have ample amounts of Bitcoin. They'll go to a bank to ask for the same mortgage that they're coming to lend for, and the bank will say no, because the mortgage, anything the bank gives you, is not really based on your assets. It's based on your income, backed by your assets. But if you don't have the income, and if you're a contractor, if you're a self-owned business, you won't have that the tax deducted income that came into your bank every month. Therefore, the bank says you're no good to us. And so people come to us to really basically get the financial services they can't get at a bank. And so the big ones we're seeing now is buying property, starting businesses, divesting, even buying more Bitcoin is a common one. People oftentimes come borrow with their Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin. But those are the use cases. I like to think of us as, we don't really power loans. We power your life to do what you want through the loan. So you're not taking the loan, you're buying a house. You're not taking the loan, you're starting a business. I have a lot of clients that are relocating to places like El Salvador or Thailand. And so they'll come to me to either build their home, draw either monthly or quarterly to build the home itself. They'll draw a couple $1,000,000 to buy the home outright. And they'll also borrow from me to like buy their car. So there'll be like $1 million loan to buy a house. Then later on, there'll be like a $50,000 loan to buy a Jeep or to buy a Bronco or something along those lines, right? And so it's really interesting to see. But basically, we're powering Bitcoiners to build things and to do things and to buy things
without selling their Bitcoin.
And
then, Mauricio, let me ask you something. So if there's no monthly payments, how do you guys as a business, like, how does that work? Like, how do you guys have cash flow?
It's a great question. So you would think, at first glance, you would think that the cohort of people that keeps these loans for many, many years is a very high number. The reality is that because Bitcoin is so volatile, most often people end up closing their loans after a big run up, right after Bitcoin hits your target, and therefore you no longer need the loan, and so you've either been able to repay it, and then you wait back, Bitcoin comes back down, you'll take out another loan. Depends on what you're using it for, but typically speaking, the average duration of a letter loan is somewhere in the 6-month range.
Gotcha.
Because again, it moves so fast. If you took out a loan at 50K because you needed it for like a few months or whatever, and then in those 2 months Bitcoin went to 100K, a lot of times you don't want to wait for the money to come back. I want to lock in the new price of Bitcoin. I'm going to settle my debt and I'm going to just let it ride. And so that is how it's worked today. Later on, if the use case evolves and the way people are using these loans evolves, we may have to adapt. But so far, it's been working very great for our clients and for us.
Amazing. And one of the things also too that I really appreciate what you guys have done is the barrier to entry. So what do I mean by that? So the minimum loan you guys offer is $500, number one, and number two is this is not just which again, not to name any names, but this is not an American centric product. You guys focus a lot on the international because the access to capital in the US, we're very privileged, or in Canada as well. We're extremely privileged. But Mauricio, as you and I both know, not everyone has those types of privileges in the global South. So could you talk a little bit about that?
100%. The reason Len has a $500 loan to start and no one else does is by design. When we were starting this business, we were looking at who would need this product. And I'm from Venezuela. A lot of the people in our team are from Latin America. And we knew how badly people in this part of the world needed these services. It's already scary enough to enter into Bitcoin when you're in a hyperinflationary or authoritarian regime, that you're already doing something you don't understand. Then we were looking around at what are the other options, and other companies were, their minimum loan sizes were 10 grand, 5 grand. You can buy a house with in parts of LATAM with that collateral, and B, it's an amazingly high number to try something you've never tried and to work with someone you've never worked with. And so at Ledin, we wanted to be able to offer the lowest ticket size loan efficiently without losing money in processing that loan, which is, by the way, takes a lot of coordination to put out $500 to the other side of the world for whatever 20, 25 buck admin fee that we're getting. But we made it, we got it. And the intention here was manifold, but the main things we wanted to achieve was, one, whether you're wealthy or not wealthy, or no matter where in the world you are, you should be able to test Ledin with an amount that you're comfortable with. And $1,000 to use as collateral for your loan, we thought was a pretty the sort of good balance between friction and what we need to make the loan itself viable. And it would give people the ability to live through the experience of getting a loan funded, sending the collateral, closing it out, getting your Bitcoin back, and with $1,000. 500 really, because you're putting 1,000, you're getting 500 back. So you're really putting $500 at risk per se to test out the service. Importantly, if you were somebody in Latin America that was taking out $1,000 loan to buy a computer, if I asked you to send me $10 interest payments every month, you're going to be paying more money going to the bank and sending us the wire than the $10 we were getting. So we also wanted to design a product that was easy to use no matter where you were. And so that's the reason. And the beautiful thing about the whole thing, to wrap it in a bow, is that we, at the beginning, when we initially launched Ledin, we know what Bitcoin could do, or we believe that Bitcoin can help people regardless of where you are, whether you're in the US, whether you're in LATAM. Who needs it more? Clearly, people in places where there are no access to financial services. That's not to say people in America won't experience debasement and inflation. They'll need it too. And we love our American clients as well as our international clients. But our platform, we were one of the first ones to do it in Spanish, offer these products in Spanish. And we're not just lip servicing Spanish, legal agreements, customer support, the whole 9 yards. Same with Portuguese, same with French. And so that, and our customer support team speaks these languages. You're not just writing into some AI system that spits out an answer. We'll get on a call with you if we have to in your language, and we'll help you get what you need. So a lot of those things came together to make Ledin what it is today. But it was always, it always came from a point from a place of giving people something that they could test easily and giving people something that they could access when they needed it. And that's really the thinking behind the features you mentioned.
Beautiful. So before we wrap it up, we do have some questions in the chat. Phil C says, what percentage of loans get margin called?
Margin called, it depends on, you mean liquidated or margin called? Margin called is...
So margin called is when they ask you, essentially, liquidated, yes. I think is what he meant.
Yeah, yes. Liquidated. So I'll give you an interesting data point, and I'll have to double check my Ledin BI. So don't I need to double check. But as of Friday, this was true. We haven't liquidated a single Bitcoin loan this downturn. And so just to give you a sense of the moves versus the actual liquidation. And again, if you want to paint the picture for yourself, when you go to the Ledin website, right before you apply for a loan, it shows you, if I take a loan here and price does this, what are my key levels? You can model all of that in the little scenario player that we have in the calculator at the bottom. So you can see roughly it equates to about a 29% drop in spot from the time you got your Bitcoin for you to have to send more additional Bitcoin to the loan.
Second question from Barsanik. Can you use Ledin if you have BTC in an IRA with iTrust?
We can only take spot Bitcoin as collateral today. So we will not be able to take your IRA Bitcoin as collateral for the loan. It would have to be spot Bitcoin that you sent to us. We wouldn't be able to do it through a trust.
Last question from, I'm sorry, bro. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but someone in the chat. Why do you help some jurisdictions and not Nevada?
So we love all jurisdictions, and our goal and our plan is to open up as many jurisdictions as many states as possible. In the United States, lending is regulated at a state level. And so in some states have differing laws than other states. And so the reasons you see lending loans available in some states and not others is because in some states, the requirements are different in places like Nevada. So we are working diligently to open up the states in the US where our loans are today not available. We obviously want to service them as much as they want our loans. Trust me, we want to service them more than that. But at Ledin, we've always had a squeaky clean track record with regulators. That is what enables us to interface with banks. That is what enables us to get the licenses we have. And we will continue to do so. We will get to you, but we will get to you diligently. And it'll be like everything else we do. We're just laying the regulatory foundation so that we can be there and get there through the front door and stay there and grow with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys, if you guys want to go check out Ledin, go to ledin.io today. We're going to have Mauricio on the show on a semi-regular basis. It seems like the fans are a big fan. We had Adam on the other day, which was absolutely awesome, and absolutely love these guys. Personally use them as well. Big fan. Before we close out the show, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, the conference is literally next week. Hope to see you guys in Dallas, Texas, one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, April 3rd through the 6th. So it's literally right around the corner. Hope to see you guys in Dallas. If you use promo code BBB21, you get $100 off your ticket. I'll pull up a QR code for you guys right there on the screen. BBB21, you get $100 off your ticket to BitBlockBoom. It's next week. It's in Dallas, Texas. We hope to see you there. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. Myself, Rustin, Dante, Opti. It's going to be a great time. You definitely don't want to miss it. Anyways, I do want to give a very special shout out to our guest today, Mauricio from Ledin. Today is March 24th, 2025. I hope you guys enjoyed Simply Bitcoin Live. Smash that like button. We will be back tomorrow for a brand new episode. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.